Here we go. Hey guys, David Robinson here. Welcome to the Apartment Investing Journey. Excited about our episode today. I've brought a guest on that I'm friends with, and I believe he's got a great business model that a lot of our listeners will be able to tap into and benefit from. It's not exactly our traditional interview with an active apartment investor themselves, syndicator, but someone who's very familiar with the real estate investing world and is and investing in real estate plays a big part in their business model. And so today I've got Brad Gibb with me. Brad, how are you?
Good, David. And let's be honest, we're friends, but you just beat me at CrossFit every day. And I just wish sometime, hopefully one day I could keep up and work out with David.
That's not exactly true. That's not exactly true. But yeah, Brad and I work out each morning over at the CrossFit gym in Pleasant Grove. So Brad, thanks for spending some time. I appreciate you being willing to come on and share sort of your personal journey and also a little bit about cash flow tactics with us. So just to give everybody a heads up, Brad is the co-founder of Cash Flow Tactics. He's a former Goldman Sachs employee and that really had the realization that everything we're taught about money is wrong. And if we keep following it, we'll never reach financial freedom. He and his partner, Ryan Lee, began Cash Flow Tactics and have been helping people reach true financial freedom ever since. So Brad, with that brief intro, maybe if we can just back up, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into the space that you're in today.
Yeah, and I think it'll probably resonate with a lot of your listeners. I'm sure you and I kind of talked a little bit about this, similar path. It's that old, like I grabbed a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad and was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole world here that no one had ever talked about. And I have an accounting degree, and so I was very numbers focused, but was like, wait a minute, why didn't nobody talk about this as an option? But after reading that, like a lot of people, I was like, well, now what do I do? Like, okay, that sounds really cool, but what do I do? And that's the question that I dove into. And it was interesting that, mentioned that I worked at Goldman Sachs. That's kind of where I cut my teeth in the world of investing. So I was personally, though, pursuing this path of more Robert Kiyosaki, investment, real estate, control, cash flow, leverage, all of that. But sitting in this Wall Street world, and I actually had the fortunate or unfortunate, however you want to look at it. For me, it ended up being very fortunate. I graduated at the tail end of 2007, right in 2008. Terrible time frame, and went to work for Goldman Sachs. So I had a literal front row seat to the entire meltdown last time around. And that's when I realized, I was like, wait a minute, I'm trying to learn this framework. I'm trying to apply something that's different, but I've got no roadmap. And being at Goldman Sachs, we got to look at every sector, and everyone was losing money in every sector. I started, that was the first time I started to question, be like, wait a minute, it has a lot less to do with the specific asset class itself. Although I love real estate, but you can't just say real estate is an asset class. There's tons of stuff going on inside of real estate. It had way more to do with the investor, right? Or the method that they used to participate. And kind of the analogy I like to think about there is, if we rewind one crash even before 2008, right? Everybody bought tech stocks because tech stocks were going to go up forever until they didn't. And then when they didn't, there were a lot of people that like, screw this, I'm out of tech stocks. This is dumb. I'm going to buy real estate. And then from 02 to 06, real estate did the same thing, tech stock. And those same people who lost everything in tech stocks in 2001, were the same people that lost everything in real estate in 2008. So it had nothing to do with the fact that they moved asset classes. It had to do with the fact that they took the same mentality that they followed in tech stocks over to real estate. It was the mentality, it was the approach that failed them, not the asset class. And so what we spend a lot of time on is teaching and helping us understand how the assets work, how to actually get the returns that we're looking for, how to be the right investor for it. And then we're now prepared to go into whichever those might be, whether it's single family homes or syndications or do it actively myself or just lend, whatever that might be. We understand how the wealth is created, right? And so that's been our passion. That's been our focus for ever since I had my Jerry Maguire moment. It was like, I'm out of here. This is dumb. Everybody should see this. And of course I walked out alone and never looked back.
Well, that's great. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with us. What I have appreciated about, you mentioned Kiyosaki's books and, whether it be Rich Dad, Poor Dad or the Cash Flow Quadrant, what I love about his writing, is how he makes the complex very simple. And he breaks it down into frameworks and systems for us all to understand. And I really think that that's what you guys have done at Cashflow Tactics. And you have this framework, and I'll call it a framework. You correct me and use your terminology.
100%. We love that. Formulas and frameworks. That's where we live. Yep.
But you have this framework of produce, protect, profit, and prosper. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to just sort of dive into that framework today: produce, protect, profit, and prosper, and walk us through what that means and how you guys help people go through that framework.
Yep. So for us, wealth is not about the things that we have, right? It's what we're able to do. It's the outcome from it, right? And don't say this out loud like this is a secret. Like, I actually hate real estate. I really don't like real estate.
We got to end this.
Meaning I don't like doing real estate, but I love what real estate gets me, right? And all I do is real estate. So, but it comes down to, I want the outcome. Nobody wants apartment buildings. Nobody does. They want the outcome that it gets them. Nobody wants single family homes. Nobody wants a big amount of bank account. It's the thing that they want to derive from that, right? So when we look at produce, protect, profit, prosper, when we looked at helping somebody go from wherever they are right now to building a strategy to being financially free, actually financially free, it really encompassed a lot more than the investing element. And the more we dug into it and the more we looked at, and I'm a very patterns type person. I'm a very data analytical driven type person. If one accounting degree wasn't good enough, I got two, and then I got an economics degree. Like, that's where I live. As we broke this down and analyzed it, we started to really see that, wait a minute, unless we understand the entire conversation of money, tip to tail, then something is going to sabotage us. And no matter how good we are at one of those areas, the other area may be sabotaging us and holding us back from being free. And so as we expanded and continued to expand that conversation, it started with all of our money successes and or failures start first with this idea of production. If we don't make any money, we can't have any money to invest. And there's tons of times people will come to me and be like, Brad, I want to be a real estate investor and I want to be financially free. I want all this cash flow, but I'm broke and I make, 60 grand a year and I can't make ends meet. I'm like, well, the honest truth is you're just not making enough money. Like, that's it. Like, you can sneeze and make 100 grand in this world. Like, what we need to do is, before we start looking external for those answers, if you asked me what the number one investment anybody can make is, most people are thinking, oh, is it an apartment? Is it this? It's in ourselves, right? It's in yourself. So we start there to say, look, and we break that into three components: mindset, skill set, and network. If you are not producing enough money to have you on a path to financial freedom, then you're lacking in one of those three areas. And we should not try to get another down payment together, not put money into a 401k, not do any of those things until you've figured out that gap first, right? So it starts with production. Then if we make money but can't keep it, it's like a bucket where you're trying to fill it up. You got a hole in the bottom. We're never going to get anywhere there either. So we spend a lot of time in our frameworks helping to understand, as boring as this might sound, we understand the tax code, right? We put our frameworks and our structures together. We understand how to manage our cash flow and save toward those outcomes, and build a structure that when a dollar comes into our life, we know exactly what is going to happen with it, where it needs to go, and teeing it up for the next stage. So we spend quite a bit of time. We've got CPAs and networks. That's my background as well, as to really dive into that piece of the conversation, because at some point, depending on how much money you're making, where it's come from, the most expensive money, no one can see this because it's a podcast, but I'm going to hold it up for effect anyway. The most expensive money you have is the money in your wallet. I was like, what do you mean? Like, $1 is $1. Well, it's not. Like, by the time $1 ends up in my wallet, especially as a business owner, I had to go probably make $10 or $20 or $30. And then I had to pay all my employees and I had to have all my expenses. And then I got to have profit in my business. And then after that, I had to pay Uncle Sam his cut of it. And then I had to live my life and pay for my mortgage and pay for all my lifestyle, and then have $1 left over. And too many times people want to I'll just go make more money. And it's like, whoa, like, if we just work on keeping one of the dollars we made, that's almost the best return we can ever produce. Because for me, $1 in my wallet is worth at least 10 on the front end, right? So we lean hard into making sure we've got our structures and the right pieces together there. Then we can actually enter the conversation of profit, which is where everybody wants to go first. Where do I invest? What's the next thing? And there'd be sometimes we spend quite a bit of time before we even get to that conversation. Then it's profit. What are the fundamentals of investing look like? What are the levers that I can pull? How does this come together? And again, we've got some deeper frameworks inside of profit that really expose why real estate is such a fantastic vehicle. I mean, Kiyosaki said it himself, the two most important parts of your financial education is debt and taxes. So we got the tax piece covered. And then in the profit side, we really start to answer those questions. We try to stay out of the conversation of, is it single family homes or multi-unit or whatever it would be, because it's how we use those, right? So we really understand debt and leverage and cash flow and analysis and putting the right pieces together, and almost then helping you derive your grocery list of, for me to be financially free, these are the ingredients that I need, because I know how they interact and work together, and they're going to bake the cake that I want. And then we put it last, but it's really first. The final piece of that framework is prosper, because we do all of those things. We make money, we keep it, and we invest it so that we can fuel the lifestyle that we want to have and build the life. We call it, we want to build a life we love. And so all of our conversations, before you could ever work with us, we make you answer the question of, well, what does financial freedom mean to you? And you cannot say bigger houses or faster cars. It's what does life look like, feel like, when you're financially free. And I think you would agree with this definition. We use cash flow exceeding expenses as our definition of financial freedom. And so we set that target. And so in this prosper side of it, we spend a lot of time helping get clear about what it is we're really trying to accomplish. And one big thing missing in the financial industry, just because we've been trained, taught, and educated from the very beginning that our financial plan is, well, trust my financial advisor, diversified stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and then just wait and hope that it all works out, right? No clarity, no focus, no action. It's just wait and hope. And for us, I think you'd agree, for us, hope is not a strategy. So what we do on this prosper side a lot is we set very, very clear targets. So we believe that if we apply the principles correctly, we've done it in our lives, we've done hundreds of clients where anyone, if they follow the right framework, we can be financially free in 10 years or less. So we build a 10-year plan that says from wherever you are, if we follow the right formulas, we'll be free in 10 years. Then we break that down to 12-month objectives and 90-day targets. Anyone that's grown a business, anyone that's done personal development, anyone that's trying to get in shape, it's the same thing. We set 90-day targets. Like, what am I going to do in the next 90 days to move this forward? And so that's our role, is to come in and set those clear targets, line up the dominoes, knowing, because financial freedom in 10 years seems like, again, an elephant to try to eat. But how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So we set those dominoes up on that front end of, what do I need to get done over the next 90 days? What do I need to do in the next 12 months to be on that track? And then with that clarity, we then expand it to, like, my biggest goal is to make investing so incredibly boring you actually have time to go to the gym and work out, or be with your kids, or enjoy your hobbies again. And so once we've demystified the approach and the tools we need, and I guess I didn't touch on this, the other thing we pull together, and this is why we're in this conversation today, is pull a network together to where I don't have to do everything on my own. And so we pull that together, and it allows us to go on and live the life that is financial freedom, right? We are definitely not the FIRE movement of live poor and save every single thing and then be financially free but dirt poor. Like, it's about, if I have a path that I know I can follow, that I can live free today, right? And so that's the element of prosper that all of this pushes towards. So again, produce, protect, profit, prosper. It's, if we don't have a game plan that encompasses all of those areas, like I said, you could be the best investor, but you got a big hole in your bucket, and it's going to be sabotaging you.
Yeah, I love that. And you guys have been doing this for quite a while now. You've worked with hundreds of individuals who have joined, your group and your movement and your framework around building wealth. What have you found are the biggest challenges that people run into as they go through your process? Where do people get stuck?
That's a good question. And I'm sure it's it's similar. The reason why you probably have a podcast to help people through the same thing. The first and biggest one is what we call goldfish advice. So goldfish advice, we tried to very kindly and nicely identify the people that get in our way, right? And so it comes from the old joke. There's a joke that there's 3 fish in a goldfish bowl, 2 younger ones and an older one. And as they swim past each other, the older goldfish says to the younger 2 goldfish, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the 2 younger goldfish swim on and with confused looks on their face, turn to each other and say, "What the hell is water?" Right? And it's meant to encapsulate like the traditional financial advice that's out there. You're listening to a goldfish because they have no knowledge, no expertise, no experience, no tools beyond the pre-packaged, approved financial Wall Street options, right? So there are goldfish swimming in the goldfish bowl that doesn't even know what water is. So no matter how smart they are, no matter how many degrees they have, no matter how much they genuinely care about you and want the best for you, if they don't have the right tools, then their advice is not helpful. And it's actually destructive and damaging. And so that's one of the biggest things, is to get out of this mindset of goldfish, because a goldfish will tell you real estate investing is risky. Like, because they find safety in the herd, right? In everyone being together and doing all the same things. But I look at it, I'm like, I look at the markets right now, everybody just lost 30%. I'm like, I have some missed rent here or there, but I haven't lost anything. So what do you mean risky? So much of it is re-educating on what we've been told versus what reality is. And then again, framework, helping line people up to be able to even just think through the process and be able to come to a decision. Because that's where we find people is they know the traditional path isn't working, but they can't. There's so much conflicting advice out there. It's like, oh man, it's like supplements, or it's like health and fitness. Like you could see a doctor, like a commercial with a doctor in a lab coat with a degree saying never eat fat. And then the next commercial is like a doctor with a lab coat and a degree saying eat fat. You're like, what am I to believe? Same thing goes on in the financial industry. So that's probably the biggest thing that holds people back. And then the second to that would be their own internal beliefs of like, well, I can't do, like, David and Brad, they're smart guys. They've got something that I don't have and they can do it. Where we try to break it down and make it simple and attainable. That's why 90-day targets are so powerful, because it's, of course, you can't go on and manage a 100-unit apartment building today, because everything we want is outside of our current capability. If it wasn't, then we'd have it. So by definition, what you want, the you of today can't have it. So it's about, who do we need to become? What do I need to learn? How do I step that out so that I can even believe or get my head around that I could be financially free in 10 years, not 40, right? Those are probably the two biggest.
Love it. Well, and what I've noticed about you guys in your business is building a community around this process. And you guys are pretty passionate about that and do a great job of creating it and promoting it. What is it? Why was community important as you build this up?
So here's what actually kicked it off. So up until about 2.5, 3 years ago, we were still very, like, we still had the belief that, well, this is money. Like, I can't put people in a room and they'll talk about money. No one's going to do that. Right. But then I moved into a new neighborhood, and it was right about Super Bowl time. So I got invited to a Super Bowl party. I was like, oh, okay, cool. This will be like, I get to go meet the guys that I'll be hanging out with. And by the end of the first quarter, I found myself sitting by myself in the corner of the room, actually watching the game. Like, no one goes to a Super Bowl party, watch the game. Like, you're there to hang out. And I was like, what? Am I really that big of a nerd? Like, am I that socially awkward? What's my problem? And so I rethought through the conversations that I had as I met people. And, the first guy was complaining on I-15, there's terrible traffic. And he was complaining about the traffic. And I was like, oh man, I haven't had a commute in like 7 years. So I don't know, but I could tell you what you need to know to never have to have a commute. And as soon as that, now he's done, right? He just wanted to complain about the traffic. And then the next person wanted to complain about his boss. And I'm like, I listened to him and talked to him, but I was like, I haven't had a boss in like 7 years, but I could tell you what you need to do to not ever have a boss. End of conversation, right? And then the third guy wanted to complain about Donald Trump. And I was like, you know what? I'm not a huge fan of Donald Trump either. Not a huge fan of any politician, but the dude hooked us up as business owners and investors. He hooked us up. I could teach you how to like take advantage of all the stuff that he did instead of being up, no, and end the conversation. And I realized that like, even though I live in this neighborhood, our kids go to the same schools, like where we look the same because we're in the same neighborhood on the outside. I had a very different viewpoint of the world and very different things that I wanted and very different ways that I ran my life. And I never felt more alone than at a Super Bowl party with people I was hoping to be friends with. Now I'm friends with them and they're great people, right? But I think you get what I mean. And I think people listening and you've been there too, like 97% of people are never going to understand what we're doing. They're never going to understand it. They're never going to be okay with it. They're always going to be afraid of it. And so that was when we were like, what if we create our own Super Bowl party where we can all talk about the things that we're crazy passionate about that's fun? And it has exploded. It's been so much fun to see people come in and share what's working and what's not working and where they're winning and what they're struggling with. And people were very open about it because for us, you'll know you're in the right community because for us, money is just a tool. It's not taboo. It's not scary. It's something that a tool we want to learn and master to go build the life that we love. And so that was kind of the aha of, wait a minute, we can't be the only ones that need this. And so it has turned into like people have pulled accountability partners out of that. They've started investments together. I mean, it's just been really, really fun. And it's just a great place to show up and be like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. Someone else thinks that this could work too. And we're going to combine forces to be able to do that. So it's been really powerful.
Man, that's great. And I've noticed that myself. And, as I've journeyed into the commercial real estate realm, I spent the vast majority of my career on the residential side and have transitioned over to the commercial side, specifically in the multifamily space. And having that community and having that network, people that you can brainstorm with, that you can share war stories with and network with, man, it's incredibly powerful. And so you guys have done a great job creating that in your own space. What I want to do is, if you're willing, I think the listeners would appreciate, we briefly touched on produce, protect, profit, and prosper. And we don't have a lot of time, and you can't unfold your entire framework in 15 minutes, let alone the 5 minutes that we have left. But if you could, what are some tactical strategies that you help your people employ through this framework on their path to reaching freedom, financial freedom?
Yeah, that's a really good goal. So, or a really good question. So like I said, in those 90-day targets, a lot of what we're coming out with, we do a lot on the tax side of things. So if you back to Kiyosaki, ESBI quadrants, what people are really trying to do is move from that E and S side of the quadrant over to the B and I side of the quadrant. And there's an entirely different tax code for that. Like it literally is a completely different set of rules to play by. So so a lot of it is setting that up and understanding how to navigate that. So that's one of the tactical takeaways that somebody coming into our community is going to get is we're going to put that framework together so that we can play by those rules. And then the other piece on the invest side where we dive into is in every investment, regardless of what kind, there's actually 4 ways we can make money. And this applies to the stock market too. You're just not taught how to do this. So the thing we buy can go up in value. That's appreciation, right? Most people stop there. Most people want to buy something so that it goes up in value. But if you take that approach to stocks or real estate, you're going to get slaughtered at some point. Like you just don't have control over whether something's always going to go up or not. But there's 3 other ways to make money. The second was my favorite, is cash flow, right? So something could simultaneously go up in value or down in value and produce cash flow. The third is I can get tax benefits, right? I can receive $1 that I don't have to pay taxes on or pay preferred rates on. So that $1's worth more to me. And then the last, and I think this is most fun, although we got to be super careful with it, is I can make money on leverage, right? On other people's money. So we spend a lot of time helping people. So rather than analyzing, am I going to make money because this thing's going to be worth more? We help people understand, how are all the different ways that I'm going to make money, and how can I get as many of those 4 pillars, we call it the 4 pillars of investing, how can I get as many of those as possible when I look at a deal? So it's less about because I could invest in a 50 unit apartment building just for appreciation, just for cash flow, just for tax benefits, or I could combine all of these together and really understand how the deal is put together. And that's where we spend. That's probably the biggest tactical takeaway that somebody is going to get are the mental tools to be able to look at a deal beyond just, oh, somebody said this is in a good neighborhood and we're going to do a value add, it'll be worth more, but to really understand the elements and how those then translate over to the side of financial freedom. So it's, again, we do a little bit of the investment. We've made some relationships, but really it's about bringing into a network and setting up those targets and saying, okay, based on where you're at, you need these elements of the 4 pillars and in these amounts. So now let's go look for deals that match up with that. So
that's great.
That's the layer deeper that we want to look at, because you said there's a million ways to invest in real estate. It's not the asset. It's how we go about doing it. So those are 2 tactical pieces we spend a lot of time building out in the game plan. And then most people in our community choose to get started where it's a simpler transaction. It's a little bit easier to get their feet wet. So we've got kind of an on-ramp, if you've never done real estate before, to dive right into something like a single family house, right? Much easier to get a mortgage, much easier to understand the numbers, much easier to get your feet wet, cut your teeth on it. But ultimately, we love the idea of monopoly, right? Get 4 or 5 greenhouses. Now we start trading for red hotels and we start to understand those more complex, those bigger investment deals. And so, but then we work with a lot of people that, like Jimmy, my business partner, he went the other way. He was very, very successful up in real estate and had no idea why it was working. It just worked really well. And I came in and was like, dude, you realize this, and if we tweak this and we adjust this and we understand that what's going on underneath it, and we made it, he went from, he does a turnkey, he runs a turnkey operation. So he went from doing maybe 20 deals a year to where we're on pace to over 200 deals. And he's got, knocking on the door, 500 units under management and stuff, just by understanding what was really in front of him and going on. So we do that with the very successful level investors as well, helping them understand what's sitting below, what could be optimized and how they're put together to take it to that next level as well.
Well, Brad, I appreciate your time thus far. There's a lot of our listeners that are either, just getting started in the real estate space. They understand, that real estate is a great way to build wealth and generate cash flow. They don't necessarily have a framework to go about tackling that. And that's why I wanted to bring you on today, is to be able to break down, or at least present, that there are some frameworks out there like yours where someone can plug into a system, a path that's already been tread, that other people have already gone down and figured out the intricacies and the nuances that come up as you go down this path, and really just pave a way for them, a pathwork and a pathway and a framework for them to accomplish what they want to accomplish. And I love that you guys have developed this model of financial freedom in 10 years or less, and coming up with a game plan to achieve that. So I want to start winding down here because I know that you're short on time, but I've got 3 final questions I want to ask you. Is that okay?
Sweet. Let's do it.
Great. So what's the biggest challenge that you face personally as you've been on this path to financial freedom?
Man, for me, I struggle, and I don't know if everybody does, but I definitely struggle with permission. Like, is it okay for me to be financially free? Like, is it okay for me to want that even, right? Because it didn't seem like anyone else did. And I was asking questions that would then make me feel like, wait a minute, like, am I just wanting too much? Am I just being too greedy? Am I just daydreaming all the time? And so my personal path through, whether it was, and my path, and I think this is very important to point out, that me and my 2 business partners, we're financially free ourselves. Like, I can say 10 years or less because I did it first, and then I did it for lots of other people, and so I can repeat it, right? But me walking my own path, I struggled greatly with just simply having the permission to go do anything. Like, I was so trained, taught, and educated, and I had to get good grades and had to have a good degree. And if there wasn't an answer in the back of the book, like, I couldn't make decisions. And so getting over that there is no answer in the back of the book, by the way, in real life, right? And so getting through that was absolutely the thing I continue to, but I definitely had to overcome just, it's okay. I can be financially free. I can make these decisions. I can make these choices, and I can move forward, whether I get permission externally or not.
That's great. What's the biggest win you've had thus far on your path to financial freedom?
I mean, me being able to walk away. So I was in a business employee relationship 4 or 5 years ago where it was great. Like, it worked for a mentor of mine. We grew that business together. It was amazing, but I needed to be able to move on and do now what became Cashflow Tactics. But it was one of those things where I kind of had golden handcuffs. I made really good money, $300,000 to $500,000 a year. And so that's a really tough choice, but to have been able to make that choice because I had a game plan and I was already financially free enough to where I could literally walk away from that. And I went about 9 months with no income while I was trying to get this new business off the ground. Like, being able to make a choice to pursue my passion instead of a paycheck was definitely like the moment when I could do that. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this worked. This is exactly what I had been working toward forever. And I need to for sure live that. I'd be a hypocrite on it. So that was definitely, like, in my own life, my biggest win there, to be able to pursue passion over paycheck. But most recently, like, community wide, with this whole pandemic that's currently going on and the upheavals, like, we do weekly coaching calls with our groups, and to have people come on and say, man, like, I listened to you a year ago and you sounded kind of crazy and this seemed like it wasn't going to work. Now to come back and say, I've saved $50,000, $100,000. We had someone come on and say, man, if I had not followed what you told me, this was just in December, like, I easily would have been down 250 grand. And so to see how well, because that's like, we don't handle the investing side, but to position people to be empowered with their money to be able to do that. Right now we're just really in celebration mode with our community of like everybody's feeling, with the amount of chaos that's going on, to feel empowered in your game plan has been so much fun for us.
Yeah, that's really cool. Last question for you. What is the best advice you have for someone who's just starting this path?
Okay, this is going to be a fun one. The best advice I have is don't listen to anyone's advice. Like, advice is super, super, super dangerous, because even me, like, if you ask me for my advice, I'm going to go back into my experience and what I want and what financial freedom means to me and tell you what to do. And David, you're going to do the same thing, right? Advice is by definition totally and completely tainted by the person giving it. So instead, realize advice is very dangerous. And what you should do instead is look for formulas and frameworks. And I would not follow anybody that can't very clearly articulate the formula and framework that they're following to get their success. That way, if you have the formula, you don't need advice. You then just need data that you can put into the framework that will give you your outcome. And so I was told that very early on, and it made sense for me. And I've worked hard to build my own frameworks, because to me, the person that's the most successful has the most accurate framework to help them make decisions. So I would say work really, really hard on that framework first, then making decisions and moving forward and having success will follow from that.
Man, love it. Brad, thank you so much for taking some time. I've been impressed with watching you from afar and seeing what you guys have done with your business. And you've been helping a lot of people out over the last few years. How can people learn more about what you guys have going on over at Cashflow Tactics?
So I heard that people who listen to podcasts. So we have a podcast too that we'd love you also to get in the game, and make sure you listen to David and his podcast first. But after that, bump over to, we call it the Rise Up, Live Free podcast. That's kind of our mantra is Rise Up, Live Free. So it's the Rise Up, Live Free podcast. Love you to join the conversation there. That's where we continue to talk about these formulas and frameworks. And then you mentioned a lot of people still looking for that game plan element. So whether you're a seasoned investor and feel like there's optimization underneath it to be done, or if you're brand new and want that path laid out, we run, it was hard to say, how do we take something that's going to take 10 years, right, and break it down to something that we can get some action on right away. But we worked really, really hard to condense into a 5-day challenge to where we spend about 20 minutes a day and do an exercise every day that really helps us understand what's working, what's not working, and where the gaps are, so that we can see what our next 90-day, 12-month, and that 10-year outcome looks like. So in 5 days, we take you through that process to be able to expose that for you and shed some light into the gaps that need to be filled. And so if you're interested in learning and applying, I mean, basically we take your numbers, plug them into the framework, and we start to see how it operates. We do that in just 5 days. You can go to cashflowtactics.com/5-day challenge. And it takes you, that's totally free. It's all self-guided. It's all, kind of automatically delivered, recorded, but we've been seeing some,
That's cool,
from seasoned investors to brand new people be like, I've never been able to see the world this way or laid out this clearly. So that's the goal of that. So that's, so if you want to get started.
And that's cashflowtactics.com/5-day challenge.
5-day challenge. And whether it's the number 5 or FIVE, both of them take you there. But that's where they go for that.
Cool. And we'll have all that information in the show notes. Brad, can't thank you enough for coming and spending a few minutes with me. I appreciate it. I look forward to whooping you in the next CrossFit workout as soon as we get through all this virus stuff.
Once we get back to the gym. Yep. That's for sure.
Look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Take care.